Welcome to the First Responders Wealth Network. Our mission is to help all first responders change their mindset towards money and educate how to build long-term wealth through real estate investing. Are you ready?
What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the First Responder Wealth Network podcast. My name is Dave Knight, and it is my goal to help all first responders change their mindset and start thinking about real estate investing for long-term wealth. Those of you who know me know I'm very passionate about this message, and I really, truly, genuinely believe that we all, for those of you who are not taking action, need to wake up, get a plan, and stop relying on pension alone. So my next guest is Sarah Larbi, who's a real estate investor, alongside her boyfriend, Matt, who I know and work with alongside at the police service. I've been doing this since 2013 and have been focusing on the single family home market, specifically using the Borough Strategy. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with the Borough Strategy, it's something that I'm very familiar with and encourage everyone to learn about before investing as one possibility or niche of using, and that's the Borough Strategy. So what is it? It's exactly this: buy, renovate, rent, refinance, and repeat. So the purpose of this process is to buy a property in a great location, renovate it, which forces the value up on the property, which forces the appreciation. You get great renters in there with above market or at market value rent. You bring back the bank to reappraise that property, and you pull out all the equity that you've just forced. So you have that cash in hand with a new mortgage on it. And the key of this process is to make sure there's a surplus in your rent, so you have good cash flow on that property. And then you take that cash that you have in hand and you do it to the next property. So like I said, the goal of this process is to make sure you have very little to no money originally invested in that property. So that's what I'm doing in Hamilton. That's what I'm doing for my fourplex. And for those of you who have any questions of how to do it or any questions of how to invest, please contact me through the website, and I'd be more than happy to answer any of your questions. So you can reach me at www.911wealthnetwork.com. And this day and age, I don't think I need to say www, but 911wealthnetwork.com. So like I said, reach out to me. I'd be more than happy to help. Hope you guys enjoy the interview. Hopefully it motivates you, maybe start thinking, whether it be the route that you take, the strategy you take, or area that you invest. So like I said, reach out to me if you have any questions, and hopefully you enjoy the interview. Sarah, welcome to the show. Just want to introduce you briefly. Those of you who aren't familiar with Sarah, she's got a growing portfolio. You're up to 9 now?
That's it, 9.
Jeez, it keeps on growing. So what do you focus on most? Do you find the single family homes, multifamily, student rentals? Tell everyone what you're into right now.
Yeah, so I have been an investor with my boyfriend Matt for 5 years now. We started in 2013, and we mostly do single family buy and holds. However, as we've become more and more comfortable and have increased our knowledge, we've been able to get into more of the BRRRRs, which is buying a house, renovating the house, renting out the house, and get it refinanced so that you can pull your down payment and recycle it. So we've been doing that, and recently as well, probably Matt's favorite purchase that he actually enjoys is the cottage that we bought this year without using any of our own money and just using some of the BRRRR strategies, and use that money to buy a cottage, which we're renting as well. It's still an investment property, but we're using that in between.
So you're enjoying the fruits of the labor and getting the benefits of that. Whereabouts is the cottage?
Lakefield, Ontario, so Kawartha Lakes, just north of Peterborough.
Oh, beautiful. Have you guys been able to get up much this year?
Yeah, absolutely. We've been probably 4 or 5 times up there with some friends. We booked off the long weekend so that we can enjoy them ourselves. I accidentally thought actually the September long weekend was the week after, so I actually gave the September long weekend away. That's all right.
Just don't tell Matt yet.
Oh, he found out. He's like, "Isn't that a long weekend?" I'm like, "Oh crap."
So let's back up a little bit. So how we connected was I actually work with Matt, so being a police officer, first responder, obviously my goal here is to get people thinking about real estate and investing, and just not relying on paycheck and pension alone. So now go back. How long have you guys been together now?
12 years in August.
12 years. So when you guys first got together, I'm not sure where Matt was in his career trying to get going, but maybe talk about your process of how you got involved in the real estate, and then how you guys came together or finally talked his stubborn ass into getting into real estate.
Yeah, sure. So he was 26 and I was 22 when we first met. So definitely feels like a while back.
Awesome.
I was actually still in school. I was in third year of nursing school, and he was like maybe 5 years into policing.
Mm-hmm.
And we ended up, I remember a few years afterwards, I had worked for a few years, and so had he. And when I met him, he was like $14,000-$15,000 in debt. And then I was living at home still, so I really had nothing. And I remember going to the bank, and the bank was like, we were looking and seeing what we could do for the future. And they wanted to know what our assets and what our liabilities were. And like, literally, I didn't even know what an asset was. And I didn't know what a liability was. And Matt, didn't either. And it was embarrassing. So I told
Not many do at that age though. Not many realize what the hell's going on in the world in finance.
You're right. They do not. Unfortunately, they don't teach that kind of stuff in school. So I went home and I just started teaching myself and educating myself about how to create assets and how to create passive income. And then the thing that kept coming back over and over and over was real estate. And it actually took me a couple years of constantly talking his ear off about how we should get in. And after a couple of years, we ended up that was in 2013. We ended up buying our first rental property after a lot of educating ourselves and going back and forth on all the pros and cons.
Walk through that first step. So you bought your first rental property. Did you already own a house at that point, or was it just what was the process of that? Did you pull your money out of your existing primary residence?
We had purchased our own property in 2010, a house in Oakville. Mm-hmm. And I didn't even know actually that there was such a thing as a home equity line of credit.
Yep, neither did I.
Things that you don't even know that you don't know. So the first rental property was actually in Brantford, Ontario, and cost us a whopping $129,000.
Don't tell people that.
So, this was in 2013, and the 20% down was, obviously we didn't have anything to start with, but it was at least an easier step than starting at, a house that's in Mississauga already with, a bigger down payment. So we figured, okay, let's go and look at Brantford. Originally, it was because his family's from there and he's from there. So we kind of knew the area, and his sister actually needed a place to live. So that's how he decided to pull the trigger after 2 years of me trying to push him to do it, because his sister needed a place to live. And we were basically saving and making some sacrifices early on in the beginning, which was totally worth it. And when we had the 20% down, we decided to go ahead and buy the first rental.
2 years it took.
Yes, it feels like a lot longer.
That's, and again, the reason why I'm starting this is just to get people to start thinking and realizing it's not as difficult as they make it, or maybe what they're imagining. Police and first responders, maybe in general, are a little more cautious than most people. They see a lot more, especially police, going into student rentals or any type of rental property, or just seeing houses in general. They're not necessarily in the best shape or the best people. But there's a whole strategy and process behind getting good tenants and getting, screening tenants and applicants, etc. So obviously your first rental property, you had a family member rent it out, right?
I did. Yeah, we did. Matt's sister.
Okay. So after that, what was your process moving forward for getting good renters? Because I think that's one fear that a lot of people have, is getting good tenants and hearing the nightmare stories.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was Matt's biggest fear. Just like you said, you guys see a lot, you deal with a lot of, the worst of the worst on most days. So that's actually why we started with his sister, because he felt comfortable that, he already knew her, etc. And so for the second one, we started saving, and I ended up finding her on Kijiji. And this tenant was, had a posted ad. They were looking for a place to move into for their growing family. And we started talking, and it was about 3 months of going back and forth. So we actually knew them pretty well. We knew what they were looking for. They knew what we were looking for. And so we ended up finding a house to purchase together. We ended up narrowing it down to 2 of them. And then we called them and said, hey, we like these both just the same. Do you want to go ahead and pick one? And we had already established that in order to meet the cash flow that we wanted, because we want to make sure that this is not costing us money. So we knew what she was able to pay. We said, okay, let's look for a house under this certain price so that we're still making money at the end of the day. And she picked the one. She's still there today, and they're just awesome tenants because we did something that really not many other people would ever think of doing. And I think the other piece of that is it made Matt, because he's, I'm more the risk taker in a sense. Like, I don't think real estate is risky in comparison to really anything else if you know what you're doing. But, the tenant piece could originally have scared him away if we had a bad tenant to start with. So it was important for me to make this process as smooth as possible so that he didn't crush my dreams.
Well, you know what? I give you guys credit because you're working as a team, and it is a team effort, right? So I mean, it just can't be you driving the whole way. He's got to meet you halfway, and I know he is.
Yeah, for sure.
But so you have a couple rental properties then under your belt, and then so what drives you? What really gets you going to build that portfolio, and what is your goal at the end of all this? I know you're constantly growing, but like what made you want to, once you got exposed to the Borough Strategy, let's start there. What made you want to continue to grow that through that strategy, or grow that portfolio through that strategy?
So I'll answer one of your questions in the sense that, like, what we're looking for at the end is freedom and being able to make money. And it's not entirely passive real estate, but when I look at how many hours we work, like we work so many hours, and you too, right? I mean, as a police officer, I work, 50, 60 hours a week at my job. And when I look at a Borough Strategy where, we bought a house and we made $100,000 off of it in a year, when we decided to start renovating it, it took like 3 months, and we had a contractor there for that time. So it's not like we actually ended up having to do the work, and then we make $100,000 off of it. Well, that was like maybe 10 hours total of our time.
Wow.
And, the burr was a longer burr because we ended up wanting to burr it from the start, and we found some tenants that wanted to move in with the shag carpet and everything. So we ended up doing that, and then they broke up. So that at that point in time, we renovated and did the burr on it. But, when you look at something like that versus, making 40, 50, 60, 70 bucks an hour, or sleeping and making income and making money, like, it is the one thing that for me is, I don't want to work till I'm 65. Matt doesn't want to work forever either. And who knows what's going to happen to your guys, pension and all that stuff. So it's
and there's a lot going on with that talk right now. There's a lot of changes. So this message couldn't come at a better time, I feel. So yeah.
So take the control into your own hands and learn what you need to do and change your life. And the nice thing is, and you would know more than me, but you can take your pension at 25 years or 30 years, and then just looking at what is the difference, and could you get that in real estate, where now you've got 5 years of your life. Like, you have one life. Why work 30 years if you don't have to? Yeah.
And there's also different clauses out there. I know, at the age of 50, you can pull that money out as well without penalty. So, for other people, other areas in Canada, the US, check out, there's always not loopholes, but there's just, laws and regulation of certain things that you can maneuver your pensions around if you decide to opt out. So 100K. So let's explain for people who don't understand the Borough Strategy, because it's obviously a real popular one, but like I'm just completing one myself. But for those who don't understand what it is, maybe you can explain it in layman's terms, and then from start to finish how that process works.
Yeah, sure. So basically it's a flip and a hold. So you're flipping and you're holding. So the best combination of the two, because if you buy and hold and you've got a tenant in, you've got your money from your down payment sunk in there, or if you're flipping, you're getting your money back, but you're paying a lot of taxes. So it really is the best of both worlds. So I can give you an example of the one that we actually did, December 2016. We bought a house for $151,000 in Brantford that needed, it was just really dated. Like it had good bones, but it had like purple everywhere, like a purple wallpaper in every single room. It had like wall paneling. It had the purple tub. So essentially we bought it. We would, essentially with knowing that we'd put like 25K of work into it right from the start. But I wanted to test the market regardless. And I ended up finding a tenant that wanted it just as is.
Really?
Yeah. So they were paying.
Love that sexy wallpaper apparently.
Well, she loved purple, and she also loved the wall paneling. Apparently, it reminded her of her family cottage.
Whatever works, as long as the paychecks come.
Right. So we were originally going to have them lined up and then do the renos, and then in 2 months from now have them move in, but they wanted to move in right away, and so we were charging them like $1,295, $1,300 a month on a $151,000 house. We were doing pretty well, so we figured why not. Unfortunately, they ended up breaking up in September of 2017, and so we've said, okay, well, at that point in time, why don't we just actually renovate it and we can charge higher rents? So we put in about $25,000, give or take, of reno costs, and we got it refinanced, which means that you're going to the bank or you're going to your mortgage broker. They send an appraiser out, and the appraiser tells you how much your house is now worth. So in this case, it was $275,000 that it was appraised for.
Nice.
And so what you need to do is, because you're holding it, so what you would do is you would get a new mortgage on 80% of that new value, right? So the new mortgage is $220 as an example. Mm-hmm. And then the old mortgage was $120. So the difference between that is $100 minus the $25 that we spent for the reno. So let's call it $80,000. That is net profit at the end of the day, that we were able to use to put down for a cottage.
That's awesome. And that was a smooth process. Did you have many hiccups there, or?
I mean, there's always going to be things that happen, but at the end of the day, I will say that if you buy right and you build in, some extra time and money, because things, I'm doing a flip right now, like things always take a little bit longer, things always cost a bit more money. But if you buy right and you understand not to over renovate, as an example, and you do what really is going to be important to bring up the value, mm-hmm. and you estimate correctly your after repair value, which is called ARV. If you have your numbers done correctly and you look at it as a business, I mean, yeah, things happen, but if you just put some great processes and procedures in place and stay on top of your business. Yep.
I mean, doing your research is obviously crucial. And each market's different. So yeah. I know the market that you like to focus in is Brantford. Mm-hmm. And, like I said, doing your research, knowing your market, because the numbers are different from one street to another, different areas of the city. And then also getting your team together. So depending on where your market may be, your team may change. But mm-hmm. So explain how you fell across Brantford and why you still continue to focus there.
Yeah, well, how we fell across it was actually by fluke, because that's where his sister needed a place.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
Afterwards, it seems simpler to have, one electrician, one plumber, one handyman, one of, everything in one city, and to expand. But then, as I became more and more knowledgeable and really understood that you got to look at the fundamentals of the markets, Brantford actually made a lot of sense. So, we got lucky in a way. Yeah. We just happened to pick it, but there are some really great fundamentals that it has. And, look at Hamilton, look at the development in Hamilton, everything trickles out, right? Hamilton population at some point, like even now, is trickling into St. Catharines, is trickling into Brantford. But one of the things I do like about Brantford is that there's a Laurier University post-secondary school, and it is going from like 4,000 students to 15,000, like in the next 5 to 6 years. So huge. Wow. And then you look at the demand and the supply, right? So, and you can find that on Kijiji as an example, where you can see how many, potential tenants are looking at ads on Kijiji, what the rent is going for, how quickly they're getting off Kijiji, and also the wanted ads. And then you can see, where it is. And oftentimes, like, other investors can help you if you have other investors in markets that you can connect with, or realtors. But vacancy rates are also important to look at. And then employers, is it one employer, or are there different industry types, or they're different employers? Because you don't want to invest somewhere where there's like one main employer and all of a sudden they take all the jobs to China, and then you've got a bunch of people with no jobs not paying rent. So those are also things to look for. And then transportation, I like that there is a VIA that goes there. And when I looked at the bus routes, they were increasing from Brantford to Hamilton. Want to make sure that, like, you're actually in an area where people are moving to, not out of.
Right.
So there's definitely a lot of different things that you want to focus on. And then the other piece too is the average household income. So you don't want to be buying a $600,000 house in Brantford, because most of the tenants can't afford that, right? And if you've got procedures and processes in place, you're going to make sure that you're, at least renting to somebody that makes 3 times what you're asking for in rent per month.
No, it's definitely a good market, and the population growth, that's slowly growing, and the economic growth is good there too. It's been strong over a number of years, and I looked at Brantford before I ended up going to Welland and for my student rental. But no, it's definitely a strong market, and it continues to grow. I think I read it was number 1 or 2 for the last couple of years. Is that right?
It was number 1 this year, 2018, and then number 3 last year.
Yeah. So that's solid. Obviously it's at the top. Now, is that for all? Sorry, did you say all of Ontario or all of Canada?
All of Canada.
There's a lot of markets that are growing big time in Southern Ontario. So it's important.
For the populations, and that's what you got to look at, right? Immigration, where is that coming? And the majority is coming into the Southern Ontario region, right?
Exactly.
So this is the place now to be.
Yeah, and they're getting they're expanding the GO transit. It's gonna be a lot of transportation fundamentals happening in the next few years.
Mm-hmm.
So for someone who's not exposed to all this and educated maybe as much as we are, obviously you say you got lucky, but only taking action, you only get lucky through taking action is what I'm trying to say.
Absolutely, yeah.
What can you suggest to people who, in my field, who, like Matt and I always joke around, like we were talking about earlier before we started, we're pretty conservative people. We don't like to take risks, even though, you've already said that real estate isn't necessarily the most risk niche. But what kind of tips can you give people like us who are thinking about investing in that first step? Where can they start researching? Where can they start looking and learning about doing stuff like that?
Yeah, so I would say, number 1, hang out with some other non-cops rather. Don't hang out with only people like yourselves, because I think
Totally.
cops are just very conservative, and not all of them, but a lot of them are very conservative, and sometimes they need an outside perspective.
I find it very difficult to even sometimes have this type of conversation at the workplace.
Yeah. And it's normal, but if you want to change your life, real estate is like the one thing that can change your life the fastest and the easiest. And you don't have to be extremely intelligent. You don't have to be extremely rich. Like, you can literally start as a normal person with a normal salary and really change your life. Looking at who is successful and getting their advice from that. So, I tell a lot of people that I talk to, if this person is saying, oh, don't invest in real estate, it's scary. Well, are they doing it or are they not doing it? Most people that are actually doing it will give you great advice. And the people that are not, maybe they're just scared, or they're worried about you, or because they don't necessarily know enough to be comfortable about it. But a lot of cops and other people, like they may get a lot of pushback, right, from their families, their friends, because it's not something that is so accepted. Expand your network. Go to, different networking groups, listen to some podcasts. I learned what I learned because of podcasts. And instead of listening to the radio, I would be driving and listening to podcasts and audiobooks and different things like that. And then once you really start networking and you meet other people that are thinking that way in the same ways, like you can actually really expand your own strategy, your own thoughts, your own success. And, success does breed success. So stay around those people.
For sure. And, the one thing that you learn quickly is when you start talking to other people, you start learning more and you get exposed to certain strategies that are out there. I know you've pretty much dove into the Borough Strategy quite well. But, with taking action, there's a lot of buy and hold. With time comes appreciation. And with appreciation comes the power of leverage. And there's nothing else out there really that you can leverage as well and easily as you can through real estate. And when you have the banking system backing you, it's a powerful thing. And educate yourself, and like you said, there's lots of resources out there, podcasts, online, that sort of thing. So surround yourself with the right people if you're interested in. I think the best thing you said there was don't take advice from people who aren't doing it.
Absolutely. And then just to go back, because you mentioned appreciation with real estate, real estate has like so many different ways that you can make money. So you've got your cash flow, which is the money that's left over, your net, income after your renters pay you your rent, and then you pay the mortgage, the taxes, the insurance, your maintenance, your CapEx costs, all that stuff. So like it is important, guys, when you're looking at your investment property that you calculate those numbers, because you don't want to buy something that costs too much and rent too low that you're paying the difference. So cash flow is always the first thing that we look at. And then the second thing is actually not even appreciation, it's mortgage pay down. So like if your tenants are paying down your mortgage for you, on an average mortgage, you're paying down 5 to 6% a year. So imagine putting your money in the stock market, getting 5 to 6% automatically. Like that's pretty awesome. Like no other place, in my opinion, is as safe as mortgage pay down.
Exactly.
5 to 6% on your money. And then appreciation, of course, it's done awesome in the last few years, but let's just say goes back to 3 to 4%. Okay. That's still good. And then you've got ability to write off taxes. You've got an ability to not have to worry so much about inflation. There's like so many other things that you can have in your pocket, and like different income streams, different abilities to create that wealth. And a lot of people just think of appreciation that's just like the icing on the cake. That is like, if it happens, that's great. And if the market goes down, guys, like this is why we don't care as investors, because we've got the mortgage pay down, we've got the cash flow. So if the market goes down a couple of years, well, hey, you know what, you hang on to it and you buy some more in the meantime.
No, there's so many factors for sure. No, that's good. So having said all that, what's your 5-year goal here, Sarah? What's your massive game plan? Where do you see yourself in 5? Are you and Matt growing your portfolio the way you are? I know you're heavily involved in. I mean, you got your own brand, your own podcast. You're heavily involved in the So Real Club. Mm-hmm. Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? Because I think it's awesome. You're very ambitious, and it's encouraging to see.
Yeah, I mean, I think our next step is actually we're going to be looking for a property in Costa Rica.
Nice.
And so that's something that we'd like to do, but we want to still be buying, 1 or 2 properties a year, whether it's a flip and hold sober or a buy and hold, and just, create that income. So just keep creating that income, because it's not how much you're worth, it's how much income that you bring in passively. And passively, again, is not fully passive, but it is definitely more passive than working 50, 60 hours a week at your jobs. So, that is the goal. And to be able to live the one life that you have, how you want, where you want, when you want, and do what you want. So, I think that's the goal. And in 5 years from now, like I'd love to be able to teach others how to do it, because it really is not that difficult once you have some of the key tools that you need. And really focus on even millennials, right? Millennials are struggling. So how can we help them think outside the box and be able to get themselves, a potential 10-year plan or 15-year plan where they're not working their whole lives. And so, definitely I want to keep working on the real estate group that I have. So we meet monthly. Right now, I think we've got about 150 people that come once a month, and it's educational, and we have different topics each time. It is called So Right now, Southern Ontario Real Estate Investing Training Club. We're actually rebranding it this summer, and it's just going to be called The Right Club because we want to expand across the country and have an online presence as well. And still the podcast, I mean, if I can help educate others and share my information and, provide knowledge, then, then why not? So like that real estate piece that I love doing is not so much the managing tenants, but it's like helping others, teaching others, connecting others with each other and creating success. So the podcast, it's called Where Should I Invest? It's about real estate investing. Mm-hmm. And what else am I doing? Some coaching, a few different things. I'm actually working on a book as well that should be out in the late fall.
Good for you. Nice. Yeah. I know the Costa Rica thing Matt mentioned to me once before. You guys were looking down there, and
yeah,
I think that's cool. And now I got a place to go if I want to rent out a place. But just make sure Matt is wearing that 60 SPF for his white skin. I don't know if he'll handle that very well. But, so explain to people just briefly before we go, how do people get a hold of you? Where can they find you and learn more?
Yeah, the best place would be on the website, sarahlarbi.com. And then they can email me there as well, or they can email me at sarah@sarahlarbi.com, or I actually have Instagram now. I used to not have any social media.
Need that social media. Need that.
Sarah Larbi 84. You actually do need some now for just being able to connect with others. So it actually has been pretty useful. Mm-hmm. So that's Sarah Larbi 84, and I think that should be good. Like they should be able to reach me in one of those ways.
Nice. You ready to do this quick little three question fire drill?
Sounds good. Love the fire drill.
Okay, so first question, quick. What's your most influential book that you have read to date regarding real estate investing?
So I can't actually just pick one, but I will say that the best Canadian real estate author is really anything by Don Campbell. He's written like 4 or 5 awesome books. Just read them all.
Your first step in the right direction of taking action would be what?
Spend 50 hours listening to podcasts on real estate.
That's good. And what was your most fearful part of taking that first step in real estate investing?
I will answer this for Matt. It was having a bad tenant. Or a tenant that's going to trash the place and not pay, and he was going to have another headache on his hands.
And then I would say the outcome of that would be realizing that there's a process behind eliminating that fear. So
yeah, we are very, very thorough when we screen our tenants, like even to the point where before they even get the keys, I actually run them through my paralegal and say, and she's local and she's in the courtroom all the time. I just want to make sure she hasn't heard about them, but they definitely go through credit, etc., past landlord references, past landlords, everything. Like they go through the ringer before they get the keys.
Well, perfect. Or you can get Matt to show up in his uniform if he can still fit in it. So, well, I appreciate you honestly coming on. I've been to your meetup club there before. You got a great thing going. So if anyone's interested in going to that, I definitely suggest checking that out. You guys do good stuff there. Yes. And I'm looking forward to your success and the years coming. You guys are great people, and you have a good team between you and Matt, and you guys surround yourself with good people. So I wish you guys all the luck. Thanks so much. It was fun to be here. All right.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to rate and review on iTunes. Also, check out our website at 911wealthnetwork.com or contact Dave directly at 911wealthnetwork.com. Stay safe out there.